and I am back after a bit of a break during the Christmas period and the new year. Welcome back to all your lovely listeners once again. 2026. Hoping we can have much more success with the men's program. Can't ask too much more for the women's. But my last episode was just before Christmas. Interviewing Tess Craven. So make sure to check that out and get her thoughts on the journey of the Premiership and the journey of her own performance throughout the course of the year. But welcome once again to all you local listeners. So this tonight is just a solo episode. Probably not going to be too long. Probably 20, 25 minutes. There's not much really going on. Pre-season is just about to start up. Coming back from Christmas for a lot of the boys, so that'll be ramping up pretty soon over the next few days. I think, even though during the course of the Christmas period, the players do still have their own programs, so I'm sure they're following that and being very disciplined and diligent. And hopefully we can come back and have much more success, and we can have a bit more of a positive podcast this year. That's the aim anyway. So tonight I am going to go through the top 5 highlights for 2025 season. For me personally, you listeners might have something different. Make sure to send me a message for your top 5. I'm also going to go through my top 5 predictions as well for 2026. So look out for that. Now, the top 5 highlights for the 2025 season were mainly the AFLW. And their success. So a lot of it is to do with them, so, which is fair enough. They had all the success in the last 12 months, the last 24 months, really. So, it's only fair that I include them in most of the highlights for the 2025. And, 2026, there'll be a couple of things about them as well. So, and also I am going to go through some goal. Now, I notice on Fox Footy, and sometimes when I'm bored, I just flick through the channels. I've been watching a bit of Big Bash, trying to refresh for the season coming up, because this is going to take a fair bit of my time over the coming months now. So, which I'm really excited about. Nothing wrong with that. But I know sometimes when I'm vegging out, I'm just flicking through channels outside of BBL. Congratulations to the Australian cricket team as well. I'm sure all their players listen to the podcast. Another fantastic Ashes series win. Quite comfortable in the end. I kind of sensed after the first test that England went up to it. They crumbled under the slightest a bit of pressure, and they can't really handle adversity. And the Bazball, well, that's pretty much gone, done and dusted. They seem to have found a new talent in this Jacob Bethel, though. Made a good 100, but no, in England, they put too much pressure on him, and he could be the next Graham Hick or Mark Ramprakash. Shout out to all my cricket lovers out there that remember the 90s and those individual players who had a lot of hype but never lived up to it. And that seems to be the English way. Shout out to Alex Tudor as well, who was supposed to be the next Ian Botham. Anyways, I'll move past cricket. But getting back to my point, during the off season, I watched a little bit of Fox Footy, and I noticed they were doing big bags segment, games of players that kick big bags. Ben Brown was in one of them, so it gave me a suggestion that I'm going to go through back to the archives and going to go through all our individual players that kick big bags and the seasons they had as well. A lot of it is to do with the 90s. That's the era I grew up in. And it's been good to just do a little bit of research into that and, go back with fond memories and talk about a few individual players that some of you older listeners might remember, and some of you newer listeners, people that were born in 2000s, Siobhan Rowe and so forth, that, this a bit of an education on the history of North Melbourne Football Club during the 90s when we were very successful. I think we had 7 top 4 finishes in 7 years in a row. That's pretty much unheard of this day and age. So, we were very successful during that 90s, and we've been starving success, it's fair to say, over the last 10 years. But I'll get to that, finish with a couple other notes as well, and what the podcast has planned for over the short term and over the next few weeks. So let's go to the top 5 highlights of 2025. So number 5, we're going to start with Ash Riddell and winning the AFLW BNF. Definitely deserved it with all her hard work, she's definitely become a very, very good two-way player now. Very good defensive player, very good outside player now. When she was a couple of years ago, she was probably more of an inside player, but now she's a good inside and outside player and become the best midfielder in the competition outside of probably Jasmine Garner. But it's good that they play for the same team. But it was good to get reward for effort. Average 38 possessions per game this year. I think she got 30. What she get 38 in the grand final, 37 or something ridiculous like that. And mind you, these girls play less time than the men's program. So there's 17 minutes. Is it 17 minutes or 7.5 minute quarters? I can't remember now. When you put it in context, it's almost like averaging about 44 possessions per game. So that was great to see. I know the last couple of years we've been crying out for Jasmine Garner to win the AFLW Best and Fairest Award, and she's been robbed. So it was good that one of her girls, and I'll talk more about them in a minute, but haven't lost the game. So they're certainly, some of these individual players certainly deserve recognition for their reward, even though they don't really care about that, especially Ash Riddell and Jasmine Garner. They've never been about those sorts of things. Number 4, and I've gone with Harry Sheasel's 54 possession game against Richmond. Now, that is an AFL record, equal AFL record, and unheard of. This day and age, especially. Now, I know we've had over the last probably 5-10 years, Tom Mitchell has broken a couple, 2 or 3 times, was very influential in that Richmond win. And, it just shows that, a lot of people talked about his year this year and probably had a bit of a down year, and he probably did because just how high the bar is, but I think he's going to be in the midfield for the next couple of years. And maybe transition as he gets into the mid to late 20s into like a forward, into a midfield role. But who knows? He's got to play midfield this year. There's no doubt about that. He will, and no doubt he will. He's out. He gives the club a lot of hope that, we talk about not being a destination club. He's the type of player that could make other players think seriously about coming to this football club. I know we've got Jason McCartney's kid that has an option of the Swans going through their academy, or father's son, Jason McCartney, obviously played a lot of football for the North Melbourne Football Club, came as part of the trade for Mark Stevens. I wasn't big on that trade in the 90s, but turned out to be a really good player. Unfortunately, missed out in the 1999 grand final team after getting suspended in the 1998 prelim final. But as far as I know, and reading the tea leaves, that it looks like Jason McCartney kid, who's a key position forward, and projected, if the draft was tomorrow for this year, they sort of mentioning him at the end of the first round. So it would be good to finally get one. Other teams seem to have gotten their fair share of the pie as far as fathers, sons, and academies and so forth. So it'd be nice to get a really good one like I can't remember his first name to be. It might be Aidan McCartney. Don't quote me on it. But I haven't done too much research into it. He seems like a really good kid from what I'm hearing. So we'll have to wait and see. Someone's coming in the chat, so I'm just going to check that quickly. No, nothing. No. No, there has been someone. Dizzle. So Innes Scrotums have been quite about Zerha at halfback in 2020. In 2026, it is early though. So I did hear that mentioned just before Christmas. Might have been Inflatable Cactus that brought up that once again. It would have been just before Christmas, I think. So, thanks for coming in, Dizzle. But who knows? Things might change pretty quickly. So, anyway, getting back to it, Harry Sheasel's 54 possession game. And, I went on a bit of a tangent about Aidan McCartney coming to the club. So, Sydney did trade their first rounders. In this day and age, you have to keep your first rounders if you want to get a high prospect like that. So they're not, from what I'm hearing, they're not very confident they're going to get Aidan McCartney. So, and it might be to do, and getting back to it, having a Harry Sheasel at your football club. And some of these players might get excited, some free agents. So you never know. Anyways, getting back into it. So that's my number 4 highlight for the year. Number 3. So AFLW, the girls breaking the winning streak of 20, I think it was 23. They're at 27 games now, so they're smashing it. There's probably going to be a few more. So, yeah, full credit to them. And I know a lot of people sort of talk, oh, well, it's an AFLW competition. There's not much competition. Still, we're setting the bar very high, and they can say what they want about the other teams. We're we're the ones that are setting the standard here, and other teams have got to start catching us. Like Emma Carty said, leading up to the grand final, North Melbourne, Brisbane, we're setting the standard. These teams have got to rise to our level. We can't. We're not going to drop to other teams' levels. So it's not a bad thing for the competition if it's going to make other teams try and strive to be the next North Melbourne, to be the next Brisbane, to be the Crows when they first came into the competition. It slid a little bit the Crows, but I'm pretty sure they'll come back up. They did a really good trade with Gold Coast, getting rid of Hatchard. I thought that was a really good move. Hatchard looked a little bit washed towards the second half of the year, so they cashed in on that, and Gold Coast don't really have a clue what they're doing. Anyways, that was my number 3. So they're at 27 games. Number 2, and pretty similar to number 3, going through the season undefeated. That's a really hard effort. Now, we were challenged in that prelim final. I did have Tess Craven on and talked about that. What were the feelings at three-quarter time? And she said she was quite nervous going into that last quarter, but good teams, they still find a way. Even though we weren't at our best that day, we still found a way. We hadn't played Melbourne before, and they started off really hot that game. They only kicked one more goal after quarter time. That was a dodgy 50-metre penalty, to say the least. But look, at the end of the day, we got through this another season undefeated. A lot of pressure as well. Going into the finals, prelim final, I think Tess Craven even said she felt the pressure more in the prelim because if we lost this, then we're defined by that. I don't like me. I'm a sort of I don't look at it like that, but 90% of the media and the public would, and they probably wanted us to fall. To be honest with you, everyone roots for the underdogs, and I think we all do the same. So I can understand it from that point of view. But it was definitely good to get over the line of prelim and to win another grand final and go through undefeated. Full credit to these girls. They're all about the process, and it's not always about the results, but they focus on the process. And Darren Crocker has really made a big point of that ever since he's come into the program, and the results take care of themselves at the moment. And number 1, the North Melbourne AFLW team winning the premiership back to back. I don't think it's going to end there just quietly. So that's a big moment for what some of you supporters listening here would have gone to that game, and we really. Not so much. Look, we can make a comparison with the AFL men's program. We're staffed for a little bit of success, but with the women's team, we certainly can't complain. And we were in full voice. We really enjoyed it. It was a great game. We kind of knew it was over probably halfway through the third quarter. Look, they might have been a 5-10% chance after they kicked their second goal. The Brisbane Lions, I can't remember her name, who got the goal, but we just steadied and got the first goal in the last quarter, and that was the end of that. And it was a really enjoyable game, really enjoyable season, and they make because they're always about the process, and it's about the team first. You're not going to meet a team. I've never seen a team like this. I've seen a lot of good teams, and I'm going to talk about some of them in the 90s. And some of the individual talent there. But this isn't about individual talent. This is a really good team. The communication is a big thing in life. Whether you're in relationships, at work, friendships, similar to relationships, and so forth. Communication is a big thing, and it's a big thing in sport. And if communication is high, generally teams are pretty good. And these girls just never stop talking. If you ever go to an Arden Street game, don't go to our forward line. Maybe just watch a quarter in our back line and see how they communicate. And maybe just if the ball's in our forward line, there's a stoppage, watch what they're doing in the back line. The communication is excellent. They're all talking to each other, where to stand, exactly where to stand. Libby Birch is fantastic. She's been a fantastic leader. I underestimated her big time. I thought she was almost done at the Demons. Her last season wasn't great, but she's been an outstanding recruit and an outstanding leader. Jasmine Ferguson, and I know I'll talk about her a lot, but she's been an outstanding leader as well, along with Sarah Wright, who unfortunately has retired. But not unfortunately for me, because I love watching her, and particularly her last couple of games. But and there's a number of others I'm missing, I'm forgetting as well. So, yeah, Emma Carney, obviously a big talker, not just with her teammates, but doesn't mind the odd sledge as well. But that was my number one highlight for the year. The AFLW team winning the premiership. It's a big thing for the club. All right, so I'll quickly go through them. So number 5, Ash Riddell. So it is an AFLW dominate. Ash Riddell winning the BNF. Number 4, Harry Sheezel's 54 possession game. Number 3, breaking the winning streak, 27 games it is at the moment. Number 2, going through the season undefeated. And number 1, winning the AFLW premiership. So top 5 predictions for 2026 this year. So number 1, I'm going to go a three-peat. I think that's a pretty easy one. I think they're going to win it. They probably won't stop at 3. They seem to have only strengthened their team. A couple of the fringe players have gone to other clubs. Neve Martin, Ariana Hetherington, and so forth. So it doesn't make us too weak. And we do have depth to cover these couple of injuries like we did this year. We only get Mia King back next year, so we're only going to be stronger. She's probably a top 15 player in the competition. Number 2, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think the AFLW team will lose a game this year. So there will be a game where they probably kick inaccurate, get a few dodgy umpiring decisions as well, and they'll probably lose by 2 or 3 points. I think there'll be a game where we kick 3 goals, 8, and another team kicks 4 goals, 3 or something, or 4 goals, 4 or something like that. So I'm going to go an AFLW loss. So that's number 2. Number 3. I'm going to go out on a limb again. I think the men's team will play finals this year with the top 10 now. I think we'll finish about 9th and we'll win about 12 games. I know I said in my pre-season predictions, I think I've picked 8 wins, but why not? Let's be a little bit ambitious. Shout out to Dennis Committee there. And, be a bit optimistic. Well, why not? I might be regretting that one come the end of April. but look, why not? Let's go with an AFL premiership. Number 4. Now, this might be controversial as well. I'm going to go Griffin Logue to have a big year. And when I mean a big year, I think he's going to finish top 4 to top 5 in the BNF. I think he's getting himself fit. There's no doubt about that. So that's really good to see that he is taking his football seriously, I guess. I don't know if he has all the time. I don't know him personally, but at the moment, he is taking it looks like he's taking every step to make sure he has a good 2026. So I'm going to say Griffin Logue to have a big year and come top 5 in the BNF. Might be regretting that one. Who knows? So we'll see how we go. And number 5, I'm going to say Brady Rawlings is going to step down from his role as senior list manager, and Will Thursfield is going to step up. It's time for a change. I think Will Thursfield is carrying him from what I've heard. And, Brady Rawlings doesn't look like he I don't know, maybe he's just too excited for the role. Every time I hear him talk, he doesn't bring a lot to the table, does he? He's very, I don't know, boring. I'm going to say he doesn't give you much, Brady Rawlings. It doesn't fill me excitement every time he talks during the trade period. I kind of think, just saying the same old thing again. So. I'm going to say he's going to step down this year, and we're going to get Will Thursfield step up as senior list manager, which I'll be quite happy with, to be honest with you, because I haven't been too impressed with some of Brady Rawlings' list decisions since he's come to the club. So I'm going to go with that. So top 5 predictions: 3-peat for the AFLW. AFLW team, number 2, to lose a game. Number 3, men's team to play finals. Number 4, Griffin Logue to have a big year, top 5 in the BNF. And number 5, Brady Rawlings to step down from his role. So they're my big predictions in 2026. So we'll see how we go. I'll maybe ruin a few of those ones, probably halfway through the year. But we'll see what happens. All right, so I'm going to go to my favourite part here. So I mentioned on Foxtel they've been having individual players kick big bags of goals, and Ben Brown was in one of them. So in 2019, I was at that game, and he ended up kicking 10 goals against the Port Adelaide Football Club. Now, that was when Reece Shaw was interim coach when Brad Scott had stepped down, and I think it might have been after the bye. Reece Shaw stepped in and ended up getting the job for a short term, full time. After that, it was only short term. It was only another season before he stepped away from his role, and he started off with a win against Richmond. I remember that, and he had a pretty good spell there for about towards the end of the season, and the club decided to extend his stay. And one of those impressive games was Ben Brown against Port Adelaide in round 22, 2019. We ended up winning by about 80 odd points. I think it might have been 88 points or something like that. Ben Brown kicking 10 goals. Coming from the week before, we played a shocking game against Geelong where we only kicked one goal. Shout out to Mason Wood for kicking that goal as well at Cardinia Park. A lot of people were saying, Dave High, Reece Shaw, he's got no idea what he's doing. And then the next week, it went a complete 180, and we had a really good win against Ben Brown against Port Adelaide in that game. So shout out to Ben Brown. And it got me thinking when I was watching that, when was the last time a player kicked 10 goals before that? And we had to go back 20 years, almost to the day. Wayne Carey against Essendon Football Club in 1999, our premiership year, round 17. He ended up kicking 10 goals, 5 against the Bombers. Where we ended up losing that game because I think Matthew Lloyd kicked the bag that day as well. So we lost by about 5 goals. It was neck and neck for most of the game, but the Bombers were very strong that year. They finished off the year really well. Probably, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. We're probably a little bit lucky that they didn't beat the Carlton Football Club in the prelim final. It was, a little bit of luck there because the Bombers were red hot favourites. They had supporters lining up at Windy Hill during the game, I think before the game started, for grand final tickets. And they ended up losing by, I think it might have been 2 or 3 points. So, and we ended up playing Carlton and ended up winning the premiership by about 35 points. And I don't know if I would have felt as confident going into that grand final against the Bombers as I did when I found out we played the Blues. Because back then, you just had to, I think there was no live games. You had to just listen on the radio. I think it was, that's what I remember anyway. I was listening to it on the radio and I was very ecstatic. Knowing I had a lot of Essendon supporters as well. I was very ecstatic when the Blues won that game. So Wayne Carey that year ended up kicking 10 goals. Now, I'm going to go to a couple other players. So our record goal kicker in a game was John Longmire. In 1990, against the Melbourne Football Club, kicked 14 goals too at the MCG, round 14, 1990. Now, we finished off the year quite well that year. We went on a little bit of a winning streak. We ended up beating Melbourne by about 120 odd points in that game, as opposed to, I think we played him earlier in the year and we ended up losing by about 70 points or something like that. So it was a bit of a funny era. There was a lot of thumpings, a lot of big scores, which I'm going to go through in a minute. But John Longmire kicking 14 goals against Melbourne that day. Now, in 1990, John Longmire was only 19 years old and he kicked 98 goals, ended up winning the Coleman medal at a very young age. I think a lot of people forget now. We all know that John Longmire was an outstanding coach for the Sydney Swans, coached in grand finals, premierships, and so forth. But he was a very, very good full forward. Unfortunately, did his ACL in about 1994, it might have been 1995. I can't remember exactly, and that probably curtailed his career a bit. But ended up playing. No, it was 1996 actually. It was the premiership year. Yeah, he did his ACL, missed the whole year. And back then, medicine wasn't advanced. So if you did your ACL, it was almost a death sentence, really. It was almost a death sentence to your career. He ended up getting a premiership in 1999, playing as a second ruckman, just as a bits and pieces player. But he was a very, very good player for North Melbourne. Very early in his career, very, very good full forward. And there was a highlight of a game where Alan Jakovic, which I'll mention probably pretty soon, where he kicked a big bag against us very early in his career. And John Longmire kicked 7 goals. So you can go back to his highlights. Had a very good kick. Unfortunately, now he was on 96 goals going into the last game of that year in 1990. And he had kicked. And we had a game against Collingwood at Victoria Park, and that was a very fair place to go. Ended up kicking 2 goals. They kept he took a lot of marks, and I think we were about seventh, and we couldn't finish sixth to play finals. We finished off the season quite well, and we just pretty much looked for. That last game was a write-off. We ended up losing the Collingwood by about 70 points, I think it was, and we just ended up trying to kick the ball to John Longmire, and the only space, look, it was one-on-one football, but the only space was in a lot of the pockets, and that's where he had a lot of his shots from, and ended up kicking 2 goals, 8, and unfortunately didn't get to the 100-goal mark, and still holds a record to this day for the most goals in a season by a North Melbourne footballer. The next year, in 1991, kicked 91 goals as well. So that's, that's 190 goals in 2 seasons. And that's before the age of 21. I think, yeah. So, in round 2, in our biggest win in the club history at MCG, John Longmire kicked 12 goals, 5. He broke the record. He beat Malcolm Blight, who kicked 11 goals, 6 in 1981 against Footscray at Western Oval. He ended up breaking that, and then 12 weeks later, he ended up breaking that record again. He kicked 12 against Richmond, kicked 14 against Melbourne. Now, that round 2 game, 1990, we ended up winning that game by 141 points, our biggest win in the history of the club. There's been some big wins, like back in that day, there were, like, it wasn't unheard of that you'd win games by, 100, 110 points or 90 points and so forth. So, yeah, it was a very good player. Wayne Carey, another round 17, 1996, a Friday night game. He ended up kicking 11 goals against a very, very poor Melbourne team. I remember that back in the day. I think it was on Anthony Ingerson. I think for a period of time. They went through a few players, but Melbourne were pretty poor that year. So, look, not unusual for Carey, but only kicked, not to disparage that, but kicked 10 goals, over 10 goals twice, 10 goals or more. That's what I'm trying to say. I'll learn the English language one day, and that was against Essendon and against Melbourne in round 17, 1996, our premiership year, of course. I'm going to give a couple of other players a mention here. Now, Adrian McAdam, I don't know if a lot of you players remember, a lot of you listeners remember a player, Adrian McAdam. In 1993, he burst onto the scene. Now, he was already 21, 22, very mature player for that age. Now, on his debut against Richmond, I think it was, it was about round 5 or 6 in 1993. I'm just going to go. It doesn't come up. It was about round 5 or 6 in 1993. Adrian McAdam ended up kicking 7 goals on his debut. Now, the next week, we played the Sydney Swans. He ended up kicking 10 goals, and then in his 3rd game of his career, ended up kicking 6 goals against Footscray Bulldogs. We won all those games quite convincingly, and he burst on the scene. He almost got the record for the quickest player to 50 goals in the history of the game. Was second. First was Alan Jakovic. He got to it in 9 games. Adrian McAdam got to it in 10 games. Now, I'm going to go through some of his individual performances. So I mentioned the Sydney Swans, round 6, 1993. So round 5 in 1993 against Richmond. I think it was a late inclusion. I can't remember who he came in for because I went to that game. He ended up kicking 7 goals, playing in forward pocket next to John Longmire and centre-half forward Wayne Carey. So round 6, we ended up, I think we beat the Swans, who were a very, very poor team in 1993, almost on the verge of folding. They were that bad. I think we would have won by about 130 points. We kicked 229 points that day. It was a crazy score. John Longmire kicked 9 that game. Adrian McAdam kicked 10. But there's probably a number of other players that kick bags of goals. We kicked out 229 points that game, and I think the Swans kicked about 88 or something like that, or 89 or something. I can't remember. It might have been our second ever biggest win. It might have been 140 points because the Richmond game is our biggest win in 1990. So. Sorry to go on a bit of a tangent there, but Adrian McAdam kicking 10 against the Swans. Now, this game I watched, I got it on VHS cassette. Back then, you had to order it. You had to pay like $20, $30. Now, this was can't remember exactly. It was against Collingwood, round 10, 1993 at Victoria Park. Now, they obviously had a big fortress, and we ended up winning the game by about 15 goals, I remember. And Adrian McCadden kicked 9 goals that day. It was absolutely outstanding. So, yeah, and it was an outstanding performance. So, yeah, I mean, that was just some of the games. Between now, in 1993, I'm going to go through how many goals Carey, Longmire, and Adrian McCadden kicked between them. Adrian McCadden kicked 68 goals, 43. John Longmire kicked 75 goals, 29. Wayne Carey, now I'll just get it up, 64 goals, 44. I worked it out, it was about 208 goals between them. It was something like they kicked 1,364 points for the year between those three players. It was crazy the amount of scores. Just to give you context, I think the Premiership team or Geelong kicked like 2,400 points for the year this year, and that was the highest. Now I think we kicked 1,800, but between those three players, they kicked like 1,364 points. So it was just a crazy era back then. It was a lot more open. It was all just one-on-one football. It was just basically get the ball. If you can get a handball overlap, kick it long, and yeah, hopefully a player takes a mark. And yeah, it's funny going back to those games. Like I know Alan Jakovic. I think it was like his third or fourth game. He ended up kicking 11 goals against us. So I remember he was on top of Mick Martin early. And back in that day, Mick Martin, they decided, oh, well, Jim Stynes, I think he might have won the 1991. I think he won the Brownlow medal. He was a big ruckman, and Michael Gallagher couldn't keep up with him, our ruckman at the time. So I thought, oh, let's just put Mick Martin in the ruck. He ended up kicking a goal, Mick Martin. So, yeah, but that's how it was back then. Wayne Chilwish was coach, and we ended up losing that game. So, yeah, some big game performers. So if anyone ever asks, if you ever had a trivia contest or anything like that, so John Longmire kicked 14 goals. He's a leading goal kicker in an individual game, 14 goals against Melbourne. Kicked 12 against Richmond, and we've had a few. Malcolm Blights kicked 11 against Footscray. Wayne Carey, 11 against Melbourne. Yeah, it's good to look back on this and think, yeah, I went to some of these games, and yeah, it was a good time in the 1990s. Like I said, we had a lot of success. We had a lot of good players, individual players, but we were a very good team as well. Dennis Pagan really brought that club together, and without Carey and probably Pagan, we wouldn't have a club today. I know in the mid-90s, a lot of clubs, they want Ross Oakley, who was the commissioner at the time, wanted to really cut the competition down. It was bleeding money, so he really wanted to cut the Melbourne clubs down. So Fitzroy, obviously, we were pretty much over the line till last hour, and Brisbane Lions came in and took Fitzroy from us, but it looked like it was pretty much done and dusted that we were going to merge with them in 1996. Melbourne and Hawthorn were very, very close as well. I know it went to a vote to members back then. And back then, members were only might have only been 8 to 10,000. Melbourne supporters actually voted for the merger to occur. And I think Hawthorn supporters were pretty close. So this is Hawthorn and Melbourne, pretty close to merging. And Hawthorn were pretty close until Don Scott came in and said, no, this isn't happening. This is bullshit. And managed to turn the vote around. So, yeah, it was a very, very different time. And, yeah, luckily for Carey and Pagan, and, yeah, it really saved the club. Like back in those days, and if you ever read Wayne Carey's book, and I highly recommend you do, you know, we had to go hard in pre-season games because back then, I think it was a Foster's Cup or something like that. It was a cup competition, elimination. The further you got, the more money the club got. So if you got to a grand final and won that, you'd win $100,000 or something for the club. So we had to go hard. And back then, $100,000 is almost equivalent to $1 million. So we had to go really hard in those days because you look at some of the attendances and yeah, I think we are getting 8,000-9,000 for Friday night games when we were playing them back then against the interstate clubs. Not too much different to this day and age, but yeah, that's just how it was. Nick Larkey kicked 9 goals against West Coast against Gold Coast, in 2023. Kicked 9 goals. obviously famous for not tanking that game and getting Harley Reid. And so we went hard for that win. So that's going back. That's probably more recent. The closest we've come since Ben Brown to kicking 10 goals in a game. So I thought I'd just put that out there. And just to finish off, obviously, really sad news this week with the untimely passing of Phoenix Spicer. Now, I've never had a conversation with Phoenix or ever interacted with him, but I know he was a very passionate North Melbourne man. Showed a little bit as a player, ended up playing 12 AFL games, had a little bit of pace, was just a little bit undersized. But that's neither here or there. And the fondest memory I have of him was when Harry Sheezel kicked that goal against the Swans. His left foot snap was a beautiful snap, and Phoenix Spicer was the first person to jump on him. And that's what I have. That's a big memory I have of Phoenix Spicer. He seemed like he was very passionate about North Melbourne Football Club still, even though he hadn't played for the last couple of years, hadn't been on the list, for the last couple of years. I know he was a couple of his tweets that he mentioned on X, he's still very much in love with the club, and it didn't forget where it came from. So it was a little bit sad to hear about, especially a young man like that. That he's only 23 years old. So obviously thoughts and prayers are with his family. He must be really doing it, very tough at the moment. So that puts things into context at the end of the day quite quickly. So hopefully. We can honour him as best as we can. Hopefully, we can, mention him during the season. Hopefully, the club can do something for him as well because, like I said, he was very passionate about North Melbourne Football Club still. Last couple of years, he'd been on a Footscray VFL team, maybe trying to come back to the AFL program. He's probably trying to maybe have the last lifeline, but unfortunately, it's just one of those things that happens. And it was emergency for the Footscray. Now they had a very strong VFL team, and they ended up winning the premiership. They were very strong during the course of the year, and thoroughly deserved the premiership. So he was part of that club. So well done for that. And was going to play this year at the Hoppers Crossing Football Club as well, with where our old friend Jared Pollack is a coach. I'm not too sure if they've got a connection there, if they had a connection there or anything like that, but as I said, thoughts are obviously with the family and close friends as well. Rest in peace, Phoenix. And that's it for me today. Thank you once again to all you listeners for tuning in. Thanks for the comment as well, Dizzle. So over the next few weeks, I'll probably be doing a couple of positional battles as well. I think small forward's going to be an interesting spot. We've got a lot of small forwards. Are they any good? I'm not too sure. So, we'll probably go through a little bit of that. Try and get some AFLW girls on as well. Maybe talk to a few different guests as well and get their thoughts as well. So, I'll probably look to go back to 1 or 2 days a week, depending on what's on. I'll certainly send some messages out there, but very excited for the year ahead. And once again, thank you to all you lovely listeners. Thank you to all the people that did all that Spotify Wrapped, and had me and the other North podcasts on the top of their list as far as listening goes. So thank you very much for all that. But anyways, that's it from me tonight. Don't forget, like, subscribe, leave a comment, help the show out, tell your friends, tell whoever about it. That's it from